Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Can someone tell me what's today's date? What is it? June 19th. Today is a federal holiday. Today is a federal holiday. And why that is the case, inshallah, in tonight's Khatira, I'll try to explain, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Mursaleen. Amma ba'd, a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, bismillahir rahmanir rahim. There is a unique, profound story and history behind June 19th, or Juneteenth as it's stated. To make it quick, but there's a long story. Today is the day when the last person found out that they are free, even though it was decided back in April of 1861. Brothers and sisters, today I want to share part of America that is deeply painful, yet profoundly important for us Muslims. It is a story of why June 19th is important, and that they make the day that marks the end of slavery in the United States. And true understanding its meaning, we must not just look at what happened in the 1800s, but look at centuries before that. Long before Abraham Lincoln, and even before Columbus discovered America in 1492, and again discovered, there are historical evidence that Muslims had already reached America, or the Americas, before 1492. In fact, when Columbus sailed from Spain with the three ships, Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria, some of the historians have stated that Muslims were present long before that. Brothers and sisters, what we know is that back in a lot later in 1620, when the Mayflower arrived, what is now known as Massachusetts, it too might have had Muslim passengers. And they were brought not just from Europe, but from Africa, and during especially the colonial ventures. We know that here in America, today Islam seems to be the hot topic, but one of the founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, had a personal copy of the Quran. The Quran is still preserved today in Washington, D.C. He studied Islam, part of his effort to understand global religions and governance. America declared its independence from the British Empire in 1776. But Europeans, specifically European powers, had already carved up the Americas, both South, Central, and North, for almost 300 years. If you look at the Spanish, the Portuguese, the French, British, and Germans, all claim parts of these lands. The Spanish and the Portuguese dominated Central and South America, or Americas, which is why you see and hear people in Latin America speak Spanish. The French settle in parts of southern United States, like Louisiana, Mississippi. If you go to those places today, or those states, French culture is still alive till today. What about the Germans? Well, you have the perfect example of living in the city. The word Saxy is a German name. It is a German word. Many of the Germans settled here in Texas. When you personify a Texan, you typically say blue-eyed, blonde-haired, tall, everything's big in Texas. Why? Because of the Germans that moved here and settled here. So, America, or the Americas, were dominated by these European countries the way Africa and Asia were divided up. Now, this is a bit different than what happened in Africa and in Asia. There, you didn't have a foreign group of people come in and dominate. They took the resources and brought it back to Europe and benefited from them. Here in America, or Americas, for a couple of centuries, what the European colonizers did was try to utilize the native indigenous population. However, due to them rebelling, due to them dying due to them fighting back, they could not control those masses. Hence, you had the transatlantic slave trade, one of the most tragic instances of our history as human beings. Over 10 million people, including doctors, scholars, farmers, everyday people, were kidnapped and shipped across the ocean, and many of them were Muslims. Now, this is the number that came to the United States. Unofficially, there are statements that maybe even 100 million people died in the process. Think about it. 10 million were brought here, but in the process, over 100 million were killed. Now, this slavery is not similar to what perhaps we have in Asia or in Africa or in the Middle East of indentured servants, where you go in for a certain period, you get fed, you know your heritage, you know your family, and then you go back, or you live with them in a permanent venture. This was chattel slavery here in America. Let me use the word again. Chattel, similar to cattle. What does that mean? That means that these individuals that were kidnapped and brought into or put into slavery were not considered humans. This is not just me saying it or history books saying. The Constitution said it. That only 3/5 were considered human. Let me say that again. Many of our brothers and sisters that were kidnapped, brought to this country, were considered animals. 2/5 of themselves were considered animals. The Prophet ﷺ says, your slaves are your brothers. Feed them what you eat, clothe them as you clothe yourselves. Do not burden them with more than they can bear. Meaning this, when Islam says, because many people criticize Islam, saying that Islam allows slavery. No, my brothers and sisters, this is not the same thing. This is chattel slavery, and slavery in Islam is completely different. Because oftentimes in modern terms, you are a slave to corporate America, you're a slave to the debt that you take out, whether it be a mortgage, whether it be a student loan or whatever it may be. That word is different from when it comes to the transatlantic African trade that happened. So these people were brought to America, treated just like horses, cows, and other domestic animals. They were worked day in and day out. They were killed, they were sold, they were bought. Mothers were separated from their children. Fathers were separated from their families. They bred them like animals. Let me say that again. They bred them like animals. They were treated like animals. Babies were taken and sold. Mothers were taken and sold. Families were separated. This happened for almost 500 years in these lands. In 1861, the Civil War, American Civil War occurred. Now, there are many reasons why the Civil War occurred. One of them is the debate between the northern and the southern states, saying that we want representation, we want to make sure that the South has control over these free or these properties that they have. Whereas the North or northern states were saying, no, we need to start freeing, because this has become a movement to now free these individuals, or now these individuals are not considered human. So on April 16, 1862, President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation declaring that enslaved people in the South to be free. Let me say that again. In 1862, President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation declaring the enslaved people in the South to be free. But Civil War didn't end till 1865 or 1865. In those 3 years, it's just a statement. People were still being sold. People were still being put in these horrendous situations. Not until June 19th, even after they lost on April, even after the South lost and gave up fighting, this news of emancipation or proclamation didn't reach all the way to the South, Galveston, of this news, and the last person was aware of it. Juneteenth is not just an African American holiday. It is a reminder to all of us, to all Americans, especially us immigrants or people families that have immigrants, that freedom, justice, and dignity are not things to be just granted. It wasn't easy. They were fought for, prayed for, and in many cases, they died for these. And let us not forget, many of those enslaved Africans were Muslims. We have a tie with them because of humanity, but an extra tie because of their religion. So when they held onto their faith in secret, praying in the fields, whispering verses of the Quran underneath their breaths, many of them, mashallah, were scholars of Islam. One of them, Umar ibn Sa'id, was a West African Muslim enslaved in the Carolinas. He wrote in Arabic from memory, including the verses of the Quran, and his writings are still preserved till today. Our responsibilities as Muslims, my dear brothers and sisters, especially in America, for those who are new immigrants, they don't want me to talk about this. As Muslims in America, especially those who are new immigrants, it is essential that we understand in solidarity, in unity with those who suffered before us. We're not guests here. Perhaps in other parts of the world, there is an indigenous group, but here we're not guests. We're part of this nation. We must help build a future where no one is treated as less than human, whether because of their race, language, or immigration status. The Quran teaches us we have honored the children of Adam. Every human being has dignity. That is the message of Islam. That is the message and the lesson of Juneteenth. So in closing, remember the pain of the past, my dear brothers and sisters. Reflect on the blessings of freedom that you and I have, and recommit ourselves to justice, dignity, and brotherhood. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide the people to truth, people to courage, people to uphold the dignity of every soul, especially here in America, because this gives us the ability to address the issues that are happening around the world. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for our brothers and sisters across the world. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.